is a marketing strategist genius. She's worked for a lot of different brands, some really big brands. And so you're very lucky to have her wisdom and insight today. And we get to hear her journey of how she got to the place that she is now. So thank you so much for being here.
You're so kind. Thank you, Naomi. I'm glad to be here.
Good. So let's just get into it. When you were younger, like, who are some of the people that really influenced and shaped your life?
Yeah, so when I was starting, like when I was in college and growing up, I always wanted to be in the media. I love to tell stories. Even when I was a little kid, I used to write books and tell stories and make up. Like I had a vivid imagination and I would just love to tell stories. And so I read a lot, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when I was starting to figure out my career, I wanted to go into journalism because I thought that was a perfect thing for me to do because I like to tell stories and I like to hear people's stories. And I got into the world of journalism as an intern in college and found out like how icky it can be sometimes, like that you have to run up to people and whose families just died and ask them questions. And I was like, maybe this is not the approach for me. And so I still love media. I still love storytelling. And then I started to wiggle my way into kind of television and marketing for television. And I worked on a documentary. And so that was about the time that things like YouTube were starting and video online. And so that's how I ended up like really in the marketing space because that stuff was happening in the marketing space. Like you could go and shoot a YouTube video and tell a story, or you can write a blog post and tell a story and do all the things that journalists were doing, but you could do it on your own with your own autonomy. And so I started doing that for brands. And that's how I got here. I just love telling stories. I love talking to people, and I love helping people find the things that they love.
Love. That's so good. I know we all have things that give us resistance and
Yeah.
things that come up that challenge us. Like, what were some of those things for you as you were figuring out what to do?
In the beginning, it was really hard because a lot of times I wasn't taken very seriously, especially early in my career. And I knew that I was a good storyteller and knew that I was quick at learning things. But a lot of times, because I'm a woman of color, or I didn't come from a certain part of the country, or I didn't go to a certain college, I wasn't always given an opportunity. And so I had to make things on my own. And so, really, the way that I even got to where I am now in my career is doing other projects. I always had a 9 to 5 job, but like I had friends that were fashion designers. So I would help them put together their fashion shows and do the marketing and PR for that. I had friends that were musicians and artists. And so I would do things like design their album covers or put together their press kits. And that gave me a lot of experience doing the real work. And so then when I went to go look for my next job, I had a portfolio of real stuff that I had done on my own. And that's how I really moved forward through the world, is that it was this mix of I've got a job and I've got to do this stuff and people don't take me seriously. But on the other side of it, I've got these friends and people that are creatives and colleagues who value my work and think what I do is interesting and are giving me a chance. I'm not doing it for much money or any money, but that mixed together is what really made me and what made my career.
That little piece about your resistance was not being taken seriously and not having that opportunity, but rather than let that be the thing that was like, oh, I guess I just can't do this, no one's going to hire me, you said, okay, how can I make that happen and fulfill that passion inside of me?
I started my whole like own agency and had a DBA and was sending out invoices on the weekends because I'm like, forget this. I know I'm good at this.
But where do you think that confidence came from, like for you?
I think it's because growing up, nobody really told me that I couldn't accomplish something. So my dad didn't raise me like a girl. He raised me to change tires and to build things and go camping and do all of the things that anybody else was doing. And
Yeah.
so it was more of a, I didn't, especially in my 20s, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to just go do what I wanted to do.
Sometimes we don't realize how much influence shifts our perspective. Like a little kid has no idea that they can't do something until you tell them they can't do something.
Exactly. And so if you grow up with the perspective that like you go just do it and you're just expected to do it, then when you get older, that muscle memory kicks in and you just know that there's other options out there.
What's really neat is you just created something. You're like, if it's not there, I'm going to make it.
Yeah, and that's what I think, that's what people have to do, is because if you're not given the opportunity, like when I talk to younger people, I tell them, like, if you're not given the opportunity, if you're not working, go make a thing. Go, what are you passionate about? Even if it's not something that you do forever, it gives you the experience of what the business owners you're trying to get hired by need, because you'll understand what it's like to build a business, or what it's like to sell things, or what it's like just to have basic conversations with people. Like, these are experiences that you want to have anyway. If you're trying to be a thing, go try to be that thing. There's this kind of thing going around now that like you have to get paid for every single thing you do. But what about volunteerism? Like, volunteerism is really important to building not only the people that you're volunteering for, but for yourself. And if you're like trying to get a position and you have volunteered and given of your time, and you show that you're like serious and passionate about something, anything, you're going to always get chosen over the person who has no experience and has not done anything. It sucks to not get payment for it. But sometimes, especially when you're starting out in the beginning, sometimes payment is not as important as experience.
That's something huge to take in, is that sometimes you feel like you're not getting paid, but you really are getting paid.
Yeah, you are.
Experience is a currency. Like, you can take all of the school and have all the education in the world, and like you said, but you could still not get that job because you didn't have the experience.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like, what if you mess around and build something that's lucrative and wonderful and needed in the world? Like, you missed out on doing that because what? Pride?
Yeah. It's so many people I find, especially these days, because there's just so much entitlement and things, and it's, what are you going to pay me, or what am I going to get? And you miss that. When you do align with your passion and you do align with what's authentic to you, you enjoy doing it, and you should, right?
And don't you want to enjoy the things that you're doing? Like, don't you want to enjoy the thing that's bringing you money?
And you have to find that. So what would you say to people that are like, I don't know what I love, I don't know what my brand is, I don't know what I'm passionate about?
Yeah. I think that it's try a few things. And reading and listening and talking to people. I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is I love learning new things. And I've learned new things a lot of times just by going to a seminar and sitting and listening to what people are doing, or reading a couple of articles. On the internet, you start reading one article and then it's, you might like this one. And then you find yourself down a rabbit hole an hour later. But I learned so much by going down those rabbit holes. And then you really start to learn what you like and what you don't like and what's fascinating to you. If you like go through podcasts and listen to things, if you're not interested in it, if it's not exciting to you, you're going to turn it off. I think the harder thing is when you're passionate and excited about too many things.
Yeah. Oh,
that's
hard. And then you're like, okay,
that's
like
hard.
Focus on one. Can't do everything. No, that's so good, because I think it's like knowing what you don't love helps you know what you do love. And until you step out and start, like when we're younger, sometimes there's no blueprint or there's no person.
No, there's no rules set for this. And unless you were like raised in a family where everybody's doing all 10,000 amazing things and you have all this exposure to all of this stuff, how would you know? I was thinking about how people end up going to the same business as their parents
Yes.
because that's what they're exposed to.
Yeah.
But where do you go if you haven't had exposure to other things? Like you go to college because your parents told you to go do a thing, or you took some kind of musical lessons or art lessons and you found out you're good at that and you just do that forever.
Mhm.
But are you really passionate about it, or have you just been told that's what you do?
There's a lot of pressure, I think, with
Yeah,
parents too. Like, well, if I'm a lawyer, this is how are you going to make the same kind of money? How are you going to, if you want this lifestyle, then you need to do this. And half the time they're paying for it. So people do that.
yeah, so you just do what your parents tell you to do.
Yeah.
How many people do you know who have changed careers in their 30s or 40s
Yeah.
because they wake up and they're like, I hate this.
Yeah. And it's sad that it takes that long, you
Yeah,
know, but I also think that it's those moments where that's where the power comes from too, because
for
that's
sure.
the moment that they figured out their voice and they figured out, no, I'm doing all this for
I'm
everybody
not
else.
wasting any more time. We only
Yeah,
have a limited amount of time.
yeah, you just got to
You
go
can
for it.
also turn around. You can turn around if you've gone down the wrong path. Like even if you go down like a path and you think that's what you're going to do, you've got to start learning and figuring out how to get off of that path and onto the right path.
Yeah, it's like the quicker you pivot.
So that's the thing in entrepreneurship, right? And like any business, like the better you can pivot, the better you can be flexible, the more successful you're going to be. I
Mhm.
think it's the same thing in life and in your personal brand and your personal experience. The faster you can pivot, the faster you can fail fast
Yeah,
and get to the next place, the better off you're going to be. You can't be afraid of failure.
perfect. I was gonna just ask you that. I was like, what are your thoughts on failure?
Oh
Like,
my God, I
yeah,
love failure.
yeah, talk about it.
Failure is so important because if you're failing, that means you're trying things. And eventually you'll be successful or you'll learn a lesson. Like it's either going to be one or the other. And if you're failing fast, that will get you to your solution really quickly. But if you stay in failure, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, that's a constant failure. What are you doing?
You're failing hard.
You're just, yeah, not fail fast. Don't fail frequently.
Pivot. You got to
Yeah,
pivot.
pivot,
And
pivot.
that's interesting. Yeah, because some people do the same things over and over and don't learn the lesson, right?
I think that's just life. I think there's people who do the things over and over again because they feel like that's what they're supposed to do. And then there are people that take the lesson and keep moving forward. And it's hard. I can't say that failure is not hard. You got to take your bumps and you got to suck it up and there's going to be tears and you got to feel okay about there being tears. If you're not ready to have like emotional feelings about the fact that you're failing or things aren't working, then you're never going to be able to get back up.
And you'll never be successful. Like,
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing, you said it, success. You have to define what success means to you.
yeah,
Because if you think success is success owning your own thing and being your own boss, a success having a specific title and doing a job that you really enjoy, is success having more freedom to travel and not do any work at all. What is your definition of success?
if you put your success into things, you fall apart.
Oh my God, because what happens when you lose those things?
Who are you? And
You
it happens, and I think it's happening in such a huge way right now.
Oh
In
yeah,
the
because
world.
there's so many people who lost a lot of things this year and they put a lot of their value was in the career they had or the things that they had and they had to spend a lot of time with their family or they had to spend a lot of time within themselves and that was really difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I had this period of time already in my life, which is why I think I can have a little bit more awareness of it. There
Mhm.
was a period of time in my life where I lost my job and was out of work for a good 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And I was running out of money and I had a little one. I think my daughter was like kindergarten or something like that. And I had to live with my in-laws It was awful, but it was also a period of time where I had just like my career had hit a stride and I
Yeah.
had this at a title. And then I'd all of a sudden didn't have a title anymore. And I'd go to places. I didn't want to go to places because people would be like, what do you do? And I'm like, nothing.
Because you were putting your value in your
Yeah.
job and in your title.
Yeah. And it was really that long period of time being out of work that made me have to do the work internally and really think about who I am and what my value is beyond my job.
Oh, that's powerful. Because
Oh, it was a rough couple months, but I hold on to that feeling like to this day. And I
yeah,
have to remind myself regularly, even as I grow, even as wonderful things happen and I get new exciting roles and responsibilities and projects, I always have to remember who I am,
yeah.
like as a person, not as a director or a coordinator or whatever.
There are some people watching that they've built their own businesses and they've done all these things. And then there's some people that have worked for companies. I know you've done both, but how important is it? Because even in working for a different brand, you're still having to know who you are and what brands you want to work with, how you decide.
Yeah, for sure. So early in my career, I was really passionate. I still am passionate about storytelling. And so I tend to like to work for brands who have a real story, who are serving a customer, serving a person, a thing that they really need. I really learned early in my career the kind of companies that I wanted to work for. I've worked for some not great ones, but I've been fortunate to work for some really great ones. And so I spent a lot of time in my career in healthcare, specifically cancer healthcare. And in cancer healthcare, you're working with the sickest people. Like they'll never go through more trauma than this in their life than going through cancer, whether they're a caregiver or whether they're going through treatment. It's a part of their life that changes them forever. And so in telling those people's stories and really learning that like there's so many facets to a story like that, I then decided that like I never ever will work for a company that doesn't care about the people that it's supporting. I only period work for brands that have a sustainable focus. I only work for brands who have a really clear vision of how they treat their customers. And I only work for companies that are serious about creating quality, healthy products or services because I know I really care about the people that I'm talking to.
I think there's both sides because
Yeah.
there's the side of like you're speaking as a brand,
Yeah.
like this is what's important for someone who's building a brand. Like these are core things that are going to make your brand successful.
Yeah.
And then internally, this is the things you align with in order to promote a brand, right?
Yeah. And the thing is, if you're building a brand, you want to really define those things because if you're hiring employees, if you're hiring a me to run your marketing team and talk to your customers, you want to hire people who align with what you believe in. And so then we have companies out there in the world that have teams that believe in a thing and they have customers that believe in a thing and you have a cohesive just one focus to the people that you're buying from, you're selling from, you have a unified vision. And that's what's going to make you successful. The most successful brands out there are ones, especially right now, are ones that have a unified vision and it's clear from top to bottom who they are and what they believe in.
That's the doing the work, right?
You have to know, like when you're starting I talk to entrepreneurs all the time about this kind of thing. And that's the thing that I think trips people out the most because they're thinking, oh, I just want to make this product. I just want to make this thing. But who are you making the thing for? And why do they want it? And why do they want it versus the other 12 things that they could get?
It's funny because it's sometimes people know that, but they don't know it. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
get too excited about what they're doing as opposed to who it's for and if they
Yeah,
actually
exactly.
want to. Right? There's so many flops. I'm going to write a book, but
Who's going to read it? Who are you writing to?
Totally.
If you're showing one thing and you're doing something else behind the scenes and they don't match, then who's going to believe you?
Yeah.
Like it really is important. And if I could talk to entrepreneurs that are starting things or thinking about starting things, I would really encourage them to talk to the people that they want to sell to before they even start mixing a batch of anything or putting anything together. Talk to the people who you think are going to, like, if your product is for women over 40 to get rid of X, Y, and Z, go talk to 100 women over 40 and see if they really want the thing that you are trying to create.
That is like business 101, and it is
Yeah.
so missed. It
Oh,
comes down to not knowing who you are and who you
yeah,
actually want to serve.
for sure.
But that was awesome. Thank you. So for you, lastly, like for you as a person, what is the message that you want to leave with people? What are the things that your personal brand speaks to?
Yeah, so I've had to think over the years a lot of times about my personal brand and what it is that I believe in and what it is that I want to share with the world. And so you'll find me, especially on social media or even out in the real world, talking about really loving yourself
Mm.
and forgiving yourself and trusting yourself, because I think that's the thing that's important to, like, just personal growth, whatever you're doing in business, in your personal life. The more that you can love yourself and trust yourself and take care of yourself, the more that you're going to be able to show up like that for other people in the world. Because I really believe in helping people and supporting people and being there for other people. But you can't do that if you're not in a good place, if you're not in a healthy place. You can't feed somebody if you're hungry.
Man, I feel like I just went to church. That was like,
Amen.
I was like, preach. That was so good. And I think that is ultimately what it comes down to. It's like, what are you doing it for? Why are you doing it? And having that actual compassion that can only come when you're filled and you have something to give.
Exactly. You have to have something to give in order to be of service. And it's going to be so much more spectacular. The thing has been burning a fire in your belly that you're excited about giving, it's going to be so much more wonderful when you're in tune with yourself and really understand how you want to show up in the world.
Yeah. Okay, what would you say to someone who's okay, you've just opened my eyes up. What are some like good things for people to do to start working on themselves?
So I think one of the things that I do a lot when I go back to the drawing board, and because working on yourself is a lifelong thing. Like, that never stops. That should never stop.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I do when I'm really, like, I see a gap is I journal. That's like, and journaling doesn't have to be writing. It could just be audio, like talking to yourself. It could be typing it out on your phone, but really digging into using that tactile sense to dig into the things that are in your head, because we all have these things floating around in our head, these thoughts, these negative thoughts, these positive thoughts, these questions for ourselves. Getting those out of your head and onto paper or onto your phone or onto some other thing is going to do something for you. It's going to help you to understand what the issues are and work through them. The other thing that I definitely recommend is meditation, reflective thought, getting some time inside yourself to just clear your mind and start your day or your moment with a clean slate. Because again, all those things that are running around your head, they make it really hard for you to focus on anything. And then I think the final thing is if it's really strong, if there's really something that you cannot work through on your own, go get help, go get support. I am a huge proponent of therapy.
Yeah.
And even if you're like using a therapy app, which I think are awesome because you can text a therapist. If that's the place that you start, then start there. If it's church that you need to go to pastoral, then start there. If you need a full experience and somebody to really sit down and talk to, don't be afraid of doing that. I think that I heard somebody say recently that you have no problem with working on your body.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you spend the same time and effort working on your mind and your heart and your well-being?
It's true.
Right?
Yeah. It's like a brain diet. It's so good. That was amazing. And I think there's so much to catch from that. And more importantly than the external brand, it's the internal brand. And
oh, yes. Oh, I like that.
Internal branding, like that's,
right.
That's where it's at.
Work it out inside before you start trying to share it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll have a lot less hiccups.
Yeah. Nobody can tell you who you are.
Yeah. No one can switch your course.
No, exactly. Only you can do that, and you can do that based on what you understand and what you believe, and that's the way it should be anyway. But there's so many external factors. There's so many people out there who are ready to tell you what to do and what not to do and how not to do it.
So where can people find you if they want to?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram. I'm at Gentex, Gentex. And if you're looking for marketing support or anything like that, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm always there spewing out random bits of wisdom and information.
Love it. It's all the platforms.
Yeah. I'm pretty much anywhere, and I'm Gentex in most places.
So thank you for being here.
Of course. It was so nice talking to you. I got to work with you just for a little while, but I think you're so much fun. I think you're so awesome. I'm so proud of you. What you're doing is amazing.
Thank you. Oh.